Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dollar Guide. I'm Michael Bryan, and in this video, we'll be talking about one of the biggest up-and-coming names in cryptocurrencies and in blockchains, Solana. Solana and its native cryptocurrency SOL have been going absolutely wild this past year, with SOL up 16,000% since 1 year ago today. So why is there so much excitement around Solana? Why is everyone talking about it? Well, in this video, we'll be going over what it does, how it works, and what makes Solana so unique. So first off, what is Solana? Solana is a cryptocurrency computing platform founded by a former lead architect of Qualcomm, so very smart person. And the goal here is to revolutionize transactions to be faster and cheaper while still staying true to the decentralized model. And decentralization does a lot of things. And without making this video into a full hour-long fundamentals of crypto, we want to summarize this as simply as possible. Decentralized currencies mitigate things like currency manipulation and corruption while simultaneously making it more global and democratized. Instead of relying on companies or governments to make decisions, the people have the power. Decentralized environments are trustless, and while this might sound bad, trust can be broken, so it's actually a good thing to be trustless. Without trust, decentralized environments rely on personal interest and robust software, which makes platforms much more secure. Today, centralized environments are cheaper and quicker to operate. You may have heard about the slow nature of Bitcoin transactions, but Solana is trying to change that. It's doing this by using a new model called the proof of history model. Now, we'll talk more about exactly what this means in a second, but Solana founders believed that this new way of doing things was superior and a better way for saving energy, saving time, and saving resources while still achieving the same objectives in a much more scalable way. So right now, Solana can have around 50,000 transactions per second using a proof of history model, while Ethereum blockchain can do only around 15, and Bitcoin takes about 10 minutes to do one. Now, with Ethereum 2.0 coming out soon, this ratio is subject to change, but it shows Solana's potential to become one of the most prominent blockchains in the world, and there's obviously a lot of improvement here. Because of the speed of Solana, the congestion and fees are low. This allows even more transactions to occur and helps Solana thrive as it scales. Solana's native currency is SOL, and SOL is used for making transactions on the platform as well as paying fees and for staking. We'll explain exactly what that means in a second, but like the Ethereum blockchain, Solana is a cryptocurrency network where users can build applications. These apps are known as decentralized apps, or DApps, and can be used for various things such as NFTs, decentralized finance, exchanges, and decentralized lotteries, among many others. There are really endless possibilities with DApps, or decentralized apps, but those are just a few of the main examples. All right, so let's talk about the thing that really sets Solana apart, proof of history. Before we dive into proof of history, let's look at the alternatives that are in use today. Prior to Bitcoin, there was one thing holding back the technology, and you can think of it like this. In a decentralized market, if one person wanted to make a transaction with another, they would send a signal to the system, and the system would more or less choose a miner at random to verify the transaction and ensure funds were both viable and there was no double spend. Once approved, others in the network could verify this and validate, and a block would be added to the blockchain. And that's kind of the fundamentals of how a blockchain works, but of course the issue here was that if there were only, just for simplicity, say there were 3 miners, one of the miners could hypothetically trick the system into thinking it was 1,000 miners. And so choosing at random out of 1,002 miners, if 1,000 of them are actually just one person, obviously it's not going to be a fair proportion, and instead you're going to have some major corruption. Now, to mitigate this, Bitcoin implemented what is known as proof of work, meaning you need to have some skin in the game, and the skin in the game in this model is going to essentially be based on resources. So this model relies on miners to verify transactions by solving complex problems using computers, or mining as people would call it. The skin in the game here is to prevent, essentially me, if I'm the miner claiming to be 1,000, from lying about it, because I can't. It would be very expensive to have a lot of computers, and they use a lot of energy. So that's the way to keep things honest as it is. And it was a very robust system, but of course it wasn't without problems. When verifying transactions, miners must manually timestamp transactions. It takes a long time, and then eventually they're turned into blocks. Now, the whole network of computers, it takes about 10 minutes for each transaction block to go through. So proof of work is not without problems though. Not only is it incredibly resource intensive, as I said before, but 10 minutes is a really long time to verify a transaction. Imagine where you're using cryptocurrency in real life. Imagine if it was actually being applied, and you went to a McDonald's drive-thru. It would be absolute chaos if you had to go through the drive-thru and you had to wait 10 minutes for them to verify your transaction to actually pay for it, and then you drive up and get your meal. It would take you hours to get your food in the middle of the day. And so that's why Bitcoin kind of is great for a store store a value, but more or less proof of work has proved to be maybe not the best solution. So we use credit cards right now because they're essentially instant, and centralized finance doesn't have to communicate across an entire network, so transactions are much more instantaneous. Newer alternatives such as Cardano have solved this problem using a model called proof of stake. And in proof of stake model, essentially holders of the cryptocurrency can stake their crypto or stake their coins, and essentially the skin in their game is the quantity that they own, right? So instead of proving that you have a lot of work, you're just proving that you have a lot of stake in this network, and it obviously matters more to you. But Solana uses both a proof of stake and a new model called proof of history. Proof of history is designed to keep timestamps between computers on a decentralized network, with the goal of not having the computers need to communicate. So remember that proof of work takes so long because all the computers on the network have to share information. Proof of history essentially solves this issue. Using the proof of history model, Solana can process 50,000 transactions per second and has block times of 400 milliseconds, but it claims to have even more potential than that. Eventually could have up to 710,000 transactions per second, which is substantially more than, as we said before, a situation like Visa, right? Credit cards, we use them now because they're so fast. So that just shows you how fast Solana really is. Now, the Solana blockchain is built for large numbers of transactions without sacrificing safety or decentralization. Little asterisk next to decentralization. We'll talk more about that in a second. In other words, Solana thrives at scale. Now, to clear up some confusion, the name may be misleading. Unlike proof of work or proof of stake, Solana's proof of history is not actually a consensus tool. It's more like an add-on to an already existing consensus tool. So this is basically proof of stake, but adding time as a variable to make the proof of stake model much more efficient. So by adding timestamps, validators may know their order without having to communicate. In other blockchains, the computers need to all communicate with each other and gain consensus on a time before adding a block. This could actually slow things down pretty substantially, and I'll give you a really good example of this in just a second. It may sound a little confusing, but stay with me. Think of proof of work as if you took a selfie with today's newspaper. This image acts as a historical record and confirms an event happened at a particular time on a specific date. Now, of course, in the proof of history model, when a block gets verified, a timestamp will be put into the block using a cryptographic proof. So not like literally a photo of a newspaper, instead cryptographic proof, of course. So think of the cryptographic proof like timestamping a document with today's date. The stamp shows how much time passed since the transaction was proofed, and so any data within that proof must have been made before the proof was stamped. This is the way that you assign a date to a transaction. Validator nodes then come in to verify these proofs. Because blocks arrive in any order, the validator will sort them based on timestamps of their proofs, and in simpler words, they get sorted in chronological order based on the timestamps that were applied to them. Once the blocks get sorted, they'll be broken down further into smaller groups of transactions called entries. So how is this different from other proof of stake models? Using a different proof of stake model, the validators must communicate with one another, slowing down the ability to process blocks. This act of proving a transaction with historical records makes communication across a network unnecessary. Because we can avoid contact from the whole network, the transaction time will be significantly reduced. In the end, this is the primary goal of Solana. So here's a famous example that makes things a bit more clear. Imagine you have friends all over the country and you want all of them to send you a letter in the mail in a specific order. I don't know, maybe it's just something that you're into. And so you would need to send a letter to each friend, wait for them to respond, and then they would send the letter back to you. You would then send another letter to another friend, and that's how you'd get them in chronological order. Obviously, it takes a very, very long time. We've all tried to mail documents, and things take just forever. So especially since the mail is so slow, this is not a good way of doing this. Now imagine if instead, the next time you saw all 5 friends, you just told them, hey, you send me a letter on December 1st. You send me one on December 2nd, you on December 3rd. This saves you the time of not only having to reach out to all of them, but also reach out to all of them between each one. So this can be very efficient, as you can imagine, but what if when they send them to you, they use either different carriers or they're different distances away, or the mail just is slower in different areas? Like, you can imagine that they would arrive in a different order. Now, because they all stamped their own thing, you would be able to receive them in whatever order they arrive, but preferably in chronological order, and then you would be able to reorder them based on the dates that were actually stamped on the letters. So you can see that in this model, it's not only much faster and more efficient, but also requires much less communication between you and the people sending you the information. Of course, you can see how this analog really transfers over to really exemplify what proof of history is. So next, let's talk a little bit more about where you can buy Solana. I know a lot of people want to talk about about where to buy SOL or invest in it, whether that is for spending or something like that. And of course, this is not investment advice, but if you were interested in exchanging your US dollars or euros or whatever for SOL, you could do so on many different exchanges. We personally use Coinbase and Coinbase Pro, so we'll have links to both of those in the description below if you want to get started with those, as well as a full tutorial link down there as well. So if you want to know not only where to buy it, but how to buy it, we'll walk you through step by step exactly how to get invested in something like SOL. Again, this is not financial advice. This is purely for informational purposes only, but check out those links if you're interested. So now that you have a basic understanding of the proof of history model, let's talk about how you can take advantage of this. Staking is the process of essentially lending out your cryptocurrency holdings onto the network to help verify transactions. Remember, we said it's proof of stake instead of proof of work. So you don't have like a little mining rig. Instead, you would stake your cryptocurrency. So when you verify a transaction, you will receive a reward, and this is called being a validator. And if you become a validator on Solana's blockchain, you will be staking Solana's native cryptocurrency, SOL. In return for staking your SOL, you will earn a newly created SOL and a portion of the transaction fees on transactions that you help to verify. Staking Solana's blockchain is done in 3 periods: the warm-up period, the validation period, and the cooldown period. The warm-up period starts right after a validator deposits SOL. It's the time between the deposit and activation of SOL. The SOL will become active in around 2.5 days. The next period is the validation period. This period is much longer, ranging from a few months to a year. In this period, you will not be able to withdraw your SOL. This is the time when your SOL will be earning your rewards. That's a long time to not have access to your SOL, and this long time period can definitely act as a deterrent for many people. If you can get over this time commitment, then the final period is the cooldown period. The cooldown period increases the efficiency of the environment and includes upgradable smart contracts. Once this finishes, you can expect to see rates of between 6 and 12% return on your SOL. Of course, it depends on when you're watching this. This is a decent annual return, though, that can be very attractive to people who already own cryptocurrency. Now, what does Solana do? So, staking is great and all, but what utility does Solana bring to its users? On Solana, developers can program smart contracts. These contracts can lead to the development of decentralized applications, or dApps, as we talked before, and these apps have brought life to many DeFi platforms, NFT marketplaces, and much more. So, why would people not just stick with something like the Ethereum blockchain? We've heard about it before. It's been around for a little while and it's pretty robust. Well, Solana's blockchain is faster and is also cheaper, as we've been mentioning throughout this video. So there's a lower barrier to entry for developers who are just starting out, and many advanced developers also prefer Solana because it allows them to save time and save money, obviously both of which are very good reasons to do that. Solana also supports stablecoins such as Terra's Terra USD or Terra EUR. So these stablecoins represent their underlying currency and allow for quicker transactions. We also have a whole video explaining Terra and its native cryptocurrency Luna, so if you want to see that, definitely go down there and click the link in the description, or subscribe to this channel so you can see that video and future videos much like this one as they come out. Now, SOL acts as a governance token. This means that if you own SOL, and I think this is really interesting, you will have the ability to vote on future innovations and upgrades to the Solana blockchain. From what we can tell, the developers also have no plans on slowing down, so they have a very intelligent team, and we really can't wait to see what else Solana innovates. Now, Solana is improving quickly, but one of the concerns that some people have, and I just want to state it here, is the centralization or lack of decentralization of Solana. So Solana went down for around 6 hours in late 2020, and their mainnet went down on September 14th earlier this year for around 17 hours. While Solana is not as decentralized as some critics would like, it is definitely improving with time. And so with new projects launching and with more tokens being held by the community, things are definitely getting better. But it's something I wanted to state here just as, of course, a little precautionary note. Obviously, whenever you're investing in anything, there is always risk, and I highly encourage you to read more into these outages to better understand why they happened and, obviously be aware of any risks that are out there. Now, if you enjoy this video, as always, consider liking and subscribing, share it with any friends that you think might be interested in SOL, and of course, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about this blockchain, this currency, and where you think it's going to end up in the future. Now, keep in mind, we are not financial advisors. This video is for informational purposes or entertainment purposes only. We will be coming out with a bunch of videos explaining different cryptocurrencies and investing concepts. So if you want to see those videos, definitely go down and be sure to subscribe. As always, this is The Dollar Guide. I'm Michael Bryan. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.